Waitress was treated badly at a car dealership. The next day, she came back as a billionaire. What if the person you looked down on had more power than you could ever think? That's exactly what happened at Peterson's car shop on a rainy Tuesday afternoon that would change everything. Lily Chen had just finished working 2 shifts in a row at Rosemary's restaurant. Her work clothes still smelled like coffee and apple pie. At 38 years old, she'd learned to hold her head high even when life was hard. Her old sneakers made soft squeaking sounds on the shiny showroom floor as she walked toward the beautiful silver car in the corner. She'd been saving every tip, every extra penny for 3 years, dreaming of this moment. But what started as hope quickly turned into something much darker. The way the salesman's eyes looked from her old uniform to her tired face told her everything she needed to know. Some people, it seemed, believed they could tell how much a person was worth by the clothes they wore. They couldn't have been more wrong. Where are you watching from tonight? Let's see how this unfolds together. Lily had always believed in treating people with kindness, no matter who they were. Growing up in her grandmother's small house, she'd learned that respect wasn't something you earned through money, or how important you were. It was something you gave freely. Like sunlight warming everyone it touched. Her grandmother used to say, "Honey, you never know what battle someone else is fighting." The car dealership was busy with the quiet energy of a successful Tuesday. Shiny metal gleamed under bright lights, and the smell of new leather filled the air. Lily had researched every detail about the Honda Accord she wanted. She knew the safety ratings, how much gas it used, even which color would hide the coffee stains from her work uniform that would definitely happen. This wasn't a quick decision made without thinking. It was 3 years of careful planning. As she stood admiring the car, running her fingertips along the smooth paint, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Can I help you with something?" The tone wasn't welcoming. It was the kind of voice that had already made up its mind about her. She turned to see a man in his 30s, perfectly ironed shirt, slicked back hair, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His name tag read Blake Morrison, Senior Sales Associate. The way he looked at her, taking in her diner uniform, her sensible shoes, the small purse held in her hands, made her stomach tighten. "I'd like to test drive this Accord," Lily said politely, her voice steady despite the growing knot in her chest. Blake's laugh was sharp, cutting through the showroom's peaceful atmosphere like broken glass. "Ma'am, this is a brand new vehicle. Are you sure you wouldn't be more comfortable looking at our used cars? We have some very affordable options in the back parking lot." The words stung more than they should have. Lily had faced dismissal before. Customers who snapped their fingers at her. Co-workers who assumed she'd never become anything more than a waitress. But something about Blake's tone, the way he seemed to enjoy making her feel small, hit differently. "I'd still like to see this one," she said, keeping her composure even as heat crept up her neck. Blake's expression shifted from talking down to her to annoyed. "Look, sweetheart, I don't want to waste your time or mine. Do you even know what something like this costs? We're talking about a serious investment here." The word sweetheart hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was just beginning to burn. Lily felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came with being made to feel invisible. She'd experienced it countless times, the way some people's eyes would glaze over when they learned she was just a waitress, as if her dreams and intelligence somehow mattered less because of where she worked. "I understand the price range," she said quietly, her voice carrying a strength that Blake clearly hadn't expected. "I'd appreciate the opportunity to speak with someone about financing options." Blake's smirk widened. He gestured toward the gleaming Accord as if it were a crown jewel. "Honey, this particular model starts at $32,000. That's probably more than you make in a year, isn't it?" Other customers in the showroom began to notice the exchange. A well-dressed couple near the SUV display paused their conversation. An elderly man looking at a pickup truck's interior turned slightly, pretending not to listen while clearly taking in every word. Lily's hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from the effort of keeping her dignity. She thought of her grandmother, who'd cleaned houses for wealthy families her entire life, but never let anyone make her feel lesser. "Money doesn't define a person's character," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying surprising weight. "Maybe not," Blake replied, his voice growing louder, "but it definitely defines what kind of car you can afford. Look, I'm trying to save you from embarrassment here. Why don't you check out something more realistic?" The couple near the SUV exchanged uncomfortable glances. The elderly man by the pickup truck shook his head disapprovingly, but said nothing. The showroom had become a stage, and Lily was the unwilling star of a performance she'd never auditioned for. "You know what?" Blake continued, apparently feeling braver because of his audience. "I've got a 2018 Civic out back with some minor scratches. Probably more your speed. Or maybe you'd prefer to look at our financing for people with challenging credit situations." Each word felt like a small cut. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, remembering her grandmother's gentle hands braiding her hair, whispering stories about kindness and strength. When she opened them, something had shifted in her expression. Not anger, but a quiet resolve that seemed to change the very air around her. If this moment touched your heart, if you've ever felt overlooked or underestimated, please give this video a thumbs up. She reached into her purse, her movements deliberate and calm, while Blake continued his cruel performance, unaware that everything was about to change in ways he could never imagine. The humiliation burned deeper than Lily expected. She'd thought she'd built up armor against this kind of treatment over the years. But standing there in that showroom, feeling every eye on her, she realized some wounds never fully heal. They just wait for the right moment to remind you they're still there. Blake seemed to be enjoying himself now, feeding off the attention. "Tell you what," he said, his voice carrying across the showroom. "If you can show me $15,000 in cash right now, I'll let you sit in the driver's seat. Otherwise, I think we're done here." The elderly man by the pickup truck finally approached. His name tag identified him as Frank, and his weathered hands spoke of decades of honest work. "Son," he said quietly to Blake, "that's no way to treat a lady." Blake turned, his irritation flashing. "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but I know how to handle my customers. This woman is clearly wasting everyone's time." Lily felt tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. She thought about her double shifts, the way her feet ached after 14-hour days, the nights she'd fallen asleep studying business journals and financial reports at her tiny kitchen table. All of it leading to this moment, this public dismissal of everything she'd worked for. "You're right," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange kind of peace that made Blake pause mid-sentence. "I am wasting time. My time." She turned toward the exit, each step measured and dignified despite the burning in her chest. The couple near the SUV watched with obvious discomfort. Frank shook his head and muttered something under his breath about respect and decency. But as Lily reached the glass doors, Blake couldn't resist one final blow. "Hey," he called out loud enough for the entire showroom to hear. "Don't take it personally, sweetheart. Some people are just meant to serve coffee, not drive luxury cars." The words hit like a physical blow. Lily stopped, her hand on the door handle, and for a moment the weight of every slight, every dismissal, every time someone had made her feel small threatened to crush her. She'd faced bankruptcy, worked multiple jobs, sacrificed everything to build something meaningful. And to this man, she was still just a waitress who didn't know her place. Have you ever faced someone who tried to make you feel smaller than you are? Have you held on to dignity when the world seemed determined to strip it away? Let us know in the comments below. Tomorrow, she promised herself, tomorrow would be different. Blake Morrison had no idea what he'd just set in motion. The next morning arrived with unusual clarity. As if the universe itself had decided to pay attention, Lily stood in front of her small bedroom mirror. But instead of her usual diner uniform, she wore a tailored navy suit that transformed her completely. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo, and her makeup was subtle but professional. She looked exactly like what she was, a successful businesswoman who'd spent years building something extraordinary. The irony wasn't lost on her. For 3 years, she'd maintained her cover, living simply while her investments and businesses grew in the background. The diner job wasn't desperation. It was research, a way to stay connected to the community she planned to help. But Blake Morrison had changed everything with his cruelty. At Peterson's car shop, Blake was having his usual morning, arranging brochures and polishing already spotless cars. He'd probably forgotten about the previous day's encounter entirely. That was how little her humiliation had meant to him. The showroom doors opened and Blake looked up to see an elegant woman in an expensive suit walking purposefully toward him. For a moment he didn't recognize her. When realization dawned, his confident smile faltered. "Good morning, Blake," Lily said, her voice carrying quiet authority. "I believe we have some unfinished business." Blake's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. What are you doing here?" "I'm here to buy a car," Lily replied simply. "Several cars, actually. I represent the Chen Foundation, and we're looking to purchase a fleet of vehicles for our community outreach program." The color drained from Blake's face. The Chen Foundation. He'd heard the name whispered in business circles. A mysterious organization that had been quietly transforming the local community with strategic investments and charitable work. "You see," Lily continued, her voice gentle but firm. "Yesterday you assumed that because I work as a waitress, I couldn't afford a car. What you didn't know is that I own the building that houses 3 restaurants, including the diner where I work alongside my employees. I choose to stay connected to the work because it keeps me grounded." Frank, The elderly salesman from yesterday approached with obvious relief and admiration. "Miss Chen," he said respectfully, "it's an honor to meet you properly. If you've been following this incredible story and want to see how kindness ultimately triumphs, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales like this one." Blake stood frozen, realizing that his cruelty had just cost him the sale of a lifetime and possibly his job. The transformation in the showroom was remarkable. Word had spread quickly through the dealership that Lily Chen, the waitress from yesterday, the billionaire philanthropist, the woman Blake had humiliated, was standing calmly in their midst. The general manager appeared, perspiration beading on his forehead, followed by other staff members who'd heard whispers of the situation. "Mr. Morrison," the manager said quietly, "could I speak with you privately?" But Lily raised her hand gently. "That won't be necessary," she said, her voice carrying the kind of quiet strength that comes from years of building something meaningful, rather than tearing others down. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because this community needs reliable transportation for its service workers, its teachers, its heroes who keep our world running." She turned to address Blake directly, and her expression held no anger, only the kind of sadness that comes from witnessing unnecessary cruelty. "Yesterday you assumed my worth based on my uniform. You forgot that every person you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about, carrying dreams you can't see, and deserving of respect regardless of their circumstances." Blake's face had gone from red to pale to something approaching gray. "Miss Chen, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "No," Lily said gently. "You had no curiosity. There's a difference. You chose to see only what confirmed your assumptions instead of treating me as a human being worth knowing." Frank stepped forward, his weathered hands steady despite his obvious emotion. "Ma'am, if you'll allow me, I'd be honored to help you with your vehicle selection, and I promise you'll be treated with the respect you deserved from the moment you walked in yesterday." Lily smiled, the first genuine smile she'd worn since entering the dealership. "Thank you, Frank. I'd appreciate that very much." Over the next hour, she purchased 12 vehicles for the Chen Foundation's community program, including the silver Accord she'd originally wanted. Not for herself, but for a single mother who'd been walking 5 miles to work each day. The irony was beautiful. Blake's cruelty had led to a purchase that would change a dozen lives. As she prepared to leave, Lily turned back one final time. The showroom was quiet, staff members still processing what they'd witnessed. Blake sat at his desk, staring at paperwork he wasn't reading. "There's something I learned from my grandmother," Lily said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "She used to say that how we treat people when we think no one important is watching reveals who we really are. The waitress you dismissed yesterday is the same person standing here today. The only thing that changed was your perception." She walked toward the exit with the same quiet dignity she'd carried the day before. But this time she left behind something more valuable than any sale, a lesson in humanity that would echo through that showroom for years to come. If this story moved you, if it reminded you to look deeper and treat everyone with kindness, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the extraordinary and the ordinary. Sometimes the most powerful transformations happen not when we change who we are, but when others finally see who we've been all along. Thank you for joining this journey with us.